So good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
So this morning, let us deal a little bit with the korbanot, mistranslated as sacrifices. The better translation is an offering. But korban comes from the root to come near, the karev, because the essence of the service of Hashem is to bring our total self nearer to Hashem, His pure spirit. Now, we know that in recent times, it goes back also to ancient times, the human being was and is by some still considered just to be a high developed animal. Maybe with some qualities that you don't find so much amongst the various species of animals. But you take together the specific functions and qualities of animals. Some of them have a better sense of hearing, a better sense of sight. Some of them can fly with their own bodies. And some of them sing beautifully with their own beaks. And some of them have a memory that is better than human memory, as we can find out. So the animals as a whole possess many qualities, some of them even in a more concentrated fashion than the human being. They're all really primarily physical qualities that, however, have also mental aspects to them. So the uniqueness of the human being is that he has a higher soul, he's got a conscience, while animals do not possess a conscience. Therefore you can't blame some of the animals for being carnivorous and even wanting to eat human flesh. Today what we're experiencing in the world is the return of the human being to not just suppress, but to some extent cut out from his whole life, from birth upwards, the soul, the conscience, and instead of that become worse than the animals, perhaps the worst beast that exists. It's whilst we have a certain creative power, because after all that's the essence of human being, is freedom of choice. So that creative power is used to become worse than all the animals. To cut off heads of people in a similar fashion that some people will cut off the head of an animal in order to eat the meat. And here it's just destructivity, not even to eat it, it's just to be destructive. There are some animals that have a nature of destructivity. Mm-hmm. So this has become a great part of mankind, it's going in that direction. Even what is so surprising is that very many young people who have received a good education, a moral education, understand the human being is higher than the animal, and they go and join Daesh, it's close to the concept of death, killings, innocent people, murdering one after the other. You find it in some of the extreme, destructive practices in some communist countries, and then you find it even in the name of Hashem, which is the biggest blasphemy one can imagine. So that's what we have today. In the light of this, we can understand the essence of the korbanot. The korbanot tell us, you human beings have to reach a higher level. to do that you have to sublimate your animal nature. So therefore, you should recognize in the various animals, with nearly all the korbanot, the greater part of the animal, a good part of it is eaten. It's also for food. It's eaten by the Kohanim, it's eaten by the people who bring the korban, and the concept is to recognize human being has an animal nature, and the purpose of life is to sanctify. The sanctification of the animal nature. You can't just do it by ignoring it. That's what's happened. It's ignored too much, and then it becomes the master of mankind, the animal, the worst animal. So that's what shouldn't be ignored. Especially the people of Israel, we have to show to be Mamlechet Kohen Kadosh, and holiness does not mean just to separate yourself from everything material. Holiness in the Torah means to dedicate everything material in life to the service of Hashem. And that's how you come nearer to Hashem. That's the method whereby your animal nature, instead of becoming the master, will become the servant. The servant to whom? To the spiritual aspect of life, to our awareness of Hashem. That's the deeper concept. In the light of this, we understand the concepts of Ikat Adam. One of the major aspects for atonement, to come near to Hashem, is to sprinkle the blood. Not to spill the blood for no reason, but to sprinkle it. Where do you sprinkle it? On the altar. Which is, we know that the full creativity of the human being to get into, as it were, the stream of life with energy comes to the blood flow. The means whereby the human being, the Adam, the human being, can be creative. If the blood stops flowing, and there's some form of sickness that creates too many blocks in the blood stream, then it's the end of life. So this is the concept that the life power, it says in these next parshas which you're reading now, the Sefer Vayikra, is the way whereby we can purify that power in the korbanot through Zrikat Adam. So in the light of this, I'm going to refer to a specific aspect which you find of the consecration of the sanctuary. You know, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is really, we can say, the model of how man can return even to the level of Adam HaRishon before the sin. We've already discussed this. There's the deeper concept of the special garments of the high priest, and the concept also of the holy ark with the cherubs that we find guarding the Garden of Eden. So we find here a whole connection between, just like Hashem originally spoke on the mountain of Sinai, and then from the top of the mountain, after the divine revelation there, also to Moshe Rabbeinu, who passed on to the people. Afterwards, the revelation of the further aspects of Torah were given from between the cherubs in the sanctuary, which was the highest and most central point of the sanctuary, later also the temple. And so the high priest, who is the highest level, does not necessarily mean a character. Like the sages say, since it says that I want you all, people of Israel, to dedicate yourself to the mitzvot, asher yaseh otam ha'adam v'chai b'hem. If a man will do them, he will live through them. So the sages comment, it doesn't say Asher Yaseh Otam HaKohen, it doesn't say Asher Yaseh Otam Yisrael, it says Ha'adam. ומכאן שאפילו עובד לא יהודי שהוא עוסק בתורה הוא יותר קרוב מאשר כהן גדול שנכנס לפני ולפנים. To tell you, the man, person who fulfills the purpose of Adam, any human being, is greater than the high priest who goes right into the Holy of Holies. If that high priest is ignorant, which can happen, which did happen actually, when the high priesthood used to be sold in the time of the Roman period, even it happened even before, but in the time of the Roman period above all, it became, unfortunately, like a corruption of its real purpose through political and personal feelings. So that was that's the concept of the Mishpat Hashem. So in yesterday's Parsha, we refer to this, the consecration of the holy sanctuary. So Moshe Rabbeinu was asked to also, as it were, consecrate the high priest himself for his service, for which he had to bring 3 offerings. If you turn to Vayikra, chapter 8. Chapter 8.
The offering, the sin offering, and the 2 rams in the basket.
Chapter 8. Red. So it says, chapter 8, we turn to page 124 in the Jerusalem Bible. Here there's a description of the sin offering that you had to bring. So it says in verse 15 that it was the shrita of the sin offering. It says Vayishchot. And Moshe took the blood and placed on the corners of the altar round about with his finger, and then he cleansed the altar and the blood, and he threw the remainder on the foundation of the altar. Then it says in verse 18, he brought the ram of the ascension offering, the olah, and Aaron and his sons placed their hand on the head of this ram. Now it's like this, the ram represents the leader of the flock. We know that there was Aaron and his sons who had to become the religious leaders of the flock of Hashem. So it came Vayishchot, he slaughtered it, and then Moshe sprinkled the blood round about the altar. And then it says, in verse 23, then he took the Ayil Hasheni, the second ram, and he slaughtered it. And then what did Moshe do? He placed some of the blood on the lobe of the ear of Aaron, his right side, on the lobe of the hand of his right side, and on the large toe of his foot on the right side. Then he brought near the sons of Aaron, and then he did the same with the sons. So, there's a question as follows. We know we have Tameh HaMikra. Tameh HaMikra It is a technical term for the cantillation signs of how to read from the Sefer Torah. And those cantillation signs are there with special sounds. So if you look here, we have 3 offerings: sin offering, the Olah offering, and then the Shlamim offering, the Shlamim, third one. And it was a ram. The ram represents the leader. The leader's got to lead Israel the right, and give summons to the whole world in the right direction. And to understand this more deeply, we know that in the Shema we say, beginning of the second parsha, that we have to serve Hashem with our hearts, with our feelings. That is tefillah. Because tefillah, the essence of tefillah is kavanah. And the word avodah shebelev is used in contrast to avodah shebemaisa, the serving Hashem with physical acts. The physical acts are an expression of the spiritual service. And not just as an expression, also an impression. Because the physical act impresses more than words and ideas. We know if a person wants to advertise a product, he can do it with words. But we know one picture which brings you to the point is worth more than 10,000 words. You know that you see it. There are many cigarette companies that go for strong adverts, and it's got to the bottom, everyone has to know that the Ministry of Health forbids, they say it's dangerous to health to have cigarettes. That's in words at the bottom. A person who looks at the picture, and the picture is attractive in some way, then the picture is much stronger than the words. It doesn't help. It's at the bottom. Because the person's got a little bit of a craving for a cigarette. It's the picture that has enormous impact. And that's why a lot of people go on smoking, even though there are all these articles, how bad it is for health and so on. But unless you see, but you've got pictures that make it look attractive. If all the pictures would show you the state of the lung all the time, if the adverts and the pictures would also, then perhaps it would have a different impact. Anyway, I'm just using an illustration that a physical action, because we're connected with the animal soul. And the animal soul is external, depends on external. So the divine service is avodah shebama'aseh, as they say. So what happens here? I'll give you this illustration as follows. The Tama Mikra, if you look, the first offering, Vayishchot, the scripture is Vayishchot. Vayishchot. Also the second one, Vayishchot. But here, on the third one, if you look in verse 23, Vayishchot. So why is it here Shalcheles, such a long sound, a long cantillation sign, like a chain up and down, in and out? So I saw this from Chaim Kanievsky says. He says why? Because the others, Moshe did not sprinkle it on the ear, the hand, and the finger, the thumb and the toe. But here he had to sprinkle not only on the altar, he had to sprinkle the blood on the lobe of the ear, on the right thumb, and on the right large toe. That took much longer. They've had to do 3 different actions. So I want to take this a bit deeper, just to explain to you how even the detail of the Korbanot, if you go through the commentary of Rav Hirsch, he explains almost every aspect of the Korbanot on a deep symbolical pattern. For that, we've got to have history in English, and what's interested, you can read it in the Parshas for the week. But this explanation which I'm giving now, is a deeper aspect of this part of the consecration of the high priest for the sanctuary, which is as follows. The Sefer Bereshis is derech eretz. It teaches us the development of character, basically the development of love instead of the enticement of hate. And where's love start? In the family. So from Shimon begins, love between Adam and Eve. The hatred between Cain and Hevel follows. And then you have further depictions of the corruption of mankind, which also became of violence and robbery to parts of society, and also lust in place of love. But it says when the power of the use the similar interpretation when it said B'nai the judges, and those who should have introduced judgment into the ancient society, who also had an awareness of the Noachide code, which is already revealed to Adam, the Adamite code, but they ignored it. And the strong men, they took women from wherever it suited them, seduced them and raped them. It was the strong exploiting the weak. So that created a collapse of society, and even Hashem said, if this goes on, and this social violence was accompanied also by social violence in the extreme, so and also corruption of the character of families. So Hashem said, really, I want to give up the world. And there came the deluge. To survive the deluge, the family, Shem Chom Yafet. And even the children of Noah did not all follow his path. Again, there were different approaches. And then came Abraham, Avinu, to change the world. He was one dedicated himself entirely to Hashem, and through him will be blessed all the families of the earth. His purpose was to bring blessing, and indeed, he became the progenitor of Am Yisrael's religion, and also Christianity and Islam, the monotheistic faith, and set the basis for the moral aspect of the human being. So there's a description in Bereshis of what happened in different episodes. You find that the cancellation signs all through the Chumash, they're used regularly. But this Shalsheles, which you just described, is only used 4 times in Chumash. 3 times in Bereshit, and this is the 4th time, the final time. So just like we see, the book of Bereshit teaches how to transform situations of potential hatred between husband and wife to love, between parents and children also should be love and respect, between siblings to remove hatred and put in its place love. So it also teaches us how each individual control his animal nature. It's the nature of the human being that if it's faced with temptation, be it sexual temptation, or be it the temptation of anger, that frequently the physical desires for pleasure and power, and for preserving one's higher ambitions for one's own self, for self-interest, they take over and suppress the conscience. The person says, it's stronger than me. My Yetzirah, when it's called the Yetzirah, is stronger than the Yetzirah Tov, and he gives in. The question is, how can you purify yourself that you will not give in? So the Shasheret teaches us that frequently a person has a struggle inside. There's some people who don't have a struggle anymore because they've given in entirely. Their Yetzirah rules over the Yetzirah Tov. There's some people, they reach the level, the Yetzirah Tov is master over the Yetzirah. There's a great tzaddikim. It's very difficult to reach that level in every aspect. Most of us are in the situation that life is a constant struggle between each person's specific Yetzirah and Yetzirah Tov. Because all of us have different points of freedom of choice, where the powers of good and evil are more or less balanced. If the power of good has been strengthened so much, it's taken over nearly all our actions, the power of evil will become suppressed. And if the power of the other way around, then unfortunately the power of evil becomes the oppressor and not the one who is suppressed. So what should a person do? So the examples which are given now, it's got this same Shasheret on the episode of Lot in Sodom. Sodom was, what's it called? Today also, Sin City. It was not just a city, it was a whole state which was dedicated to luxury and to fulfillment of pleasure and power. They didn't allow strangers to come there to go and take some of their luxuries. No, they said, here we have, it was a super capitalistic society in which the weak were oppressed, the strangers were tortured, and the people there, they tried to become richer and richer, following their pleasures. Some of their pleasures became very perverse pleasures, as we see. We see today still, it's retained in what's known as a Sodomite depravity. So when Lot was given the chance to escape before Sodom and Gomorrah became burnt up, so he hesitated. Wait, Mamo. He didn't just give in to his sons-in-law and to all the attractions there. He had a struggle. Should he leave with the angels or should he ignore them? The angels took hold of him and he decided he's hesitating, that there was that type of hesitation. They were able to pull him away. So his life was saved. Then the next time we have this is when Eliezer had to bring a shidduch for Yitzchak. And he also had a struggle. Because he thought his daughter's much better. His daughter's raised in the home of Avraham and Sarah. Why should he go to such a long distance and get someone from the family when they were idolaters and deceivers? That since Avraham had made him swear, and Avraham knew what he was doing better than Eliezer, so he prayed to Hashem. It's also a struggle. So at the first time, the second one is Vayomer, his tefillah. The third time is the test for the young, so handsome and successful Yosef. He's called a tzaddik because of this. And came his beautiful, attractive hostess where he was staying, the wife of Potiphar. And she tried to seduce him. And he didn't give in. He said no. He recognized that temptation is given to man, so he should say no. Adam mina behema ayin. The advantage of man over the beast, we say in the morning, is ayin. A beast can't say no to temptation. It's part of its function. But a human being can say no when he's tempted. That was Yosef. And from there then, the Torah goes through description of how from this family came the basis for Am Yisrael, who received the Torah, many mitzvot, and then the highest level was they received the sanctuary, the Mikdash. And there's the Kohen Gadol who was to direct the Mikdash and go to the Holy of Holies. So he was dedicated his task to Kedusha. So that's Vayishchot. These 4 levels are a ladder whereby a person can reach the level when he slaughters the evil inclination. We should know that even in the Mishnah, Kodashim deals with sanctified service. There's a whole section, the 5th section of the Mishnah, Shisha Mishnah, deals with Kodashim. It's called Kodashim. Kodashim are all the different aspects of the service in the temple, which is the first, but there comes after the Vachim, one of the early Masechta, it's called Chulin. What's Chulin mean? Profane. What does it deal with?
The parts of the animals.
Yes.
The animal.
It deals with all the laws concerning meat, not in the Beis HaMikdash. But why is it mentioned in Kodashim? Because the purpose of Shechita is to sanctify the animal nature of every person. Even the Shechita's Chulin, it's the same concept. You're not just allowed to kill the animal how you want. No, the special laws, you say a brach on it. There's a certain common factor, subconsciously, when the person goes into the procedure more deeply of kashering an animal, of slaughtering it, behind it lies you are absorbing the same food as the animals. You've been using the animals for your food. Even some say, when Hashem saw after the Mabul, before the Mabul was forbidden to eat meat, after the Mabul, so Hashem said they should eat meat. Why? Because by eating meat, they'll keep above the animal. They've got to know, don't become like the animal. You can use the animals. You can use them for work, and you can use them also even for food. Even for food, because you should realize that you are above the animal. Subconsciously, it's going to have that impact on you. And even when you use it, you have to use it for holy things. You say a brach on the Shechita, and you've got to do it in a special manner. You mustn't have any of the blood. Don't become bloodthirsty. Like, I give you an example. Now that they have more severe methods of training terrorists, but and I know that 30 years ago, they publicized it. How do you train people to become terrorists? You have to train them to eat live cats. I mean, grotesque things. It was also well known that the first push of the Nazis was in the Bavarian pubs. The Bavarian pubs, their favorite diet was blood-soaked meat sandwiches. And it had an impact on them. They get a gross animalistic desire. They even seem to have a love of killing people. That's what's growing in different parts of the world. So this is something we have to control. So now in this parsha we have the opposite. We have the highest level, and the 3 levels are like this. I'm just giving you from Rav Hirsch, but it's much deeper in Rabbeinu B'chaim. Rav Hirsch says, you want to understand why was this blood put on the ear lobe and the thumb and the large toe? It was in order that they should learn to dedicate the ear which absorbs teachings of the Torah, the teaching of Hashem, and purifies the intelligence, that this should be the blood is sprinkled to sanctify it in the divine service in the temple, and then to do the same thing with the right side is the side of chesed, of loving kindness, and do the same with regard to activity that takes also its energy from the heart and the feelings, and then to get it to the feet, that the feet represent habit, that it becomes their regular behavior. So this was the so before this striving up to the heights of the altar, which is expressed by throwing of the blood on the altar to dedicate to Hashem, some of the blood which has been accepted by the sanctuary is placed on the ear, hand and foot of the priests, but it's made conscious of the dignity and honor to be bestowed on them, the ear through which they hear and understand, the hand by which they achieve, the foot by which they go where they wish, the understanding, the action, steps, by which above all, a personality invested with the honor being an ayel, a ram that leads the community, has to prove itself, has to be all identified with the dam shachut mukubal, with the blood which has come from the slaughtering, like the blood given up as profane and then accepted as holy. It died as profane and revived as holy, was dedicated to the altar. They too must be given up and accepted, must die and revive. The ayil offering must not remain just an external, solemn activity. The symbolic smicha means that the Kohen, in this instance, had to put his hands on the altar. It's got to become concrete and real in the actual rebirth of the actual ear, the actual hand, and the actual foot. The nefesh, which is represented by the blood, the soul part, the personality of the priest-to-be, must begin its devotion, surrender, by giving itself up to the altar. If this personality really is within itself the true dignity of its position, and is conscious to enjoy the privilege connected with this dignity, which is the concept of the Kohen. So we see from this is important teaching today, how the human being's got to reach its highest level through what we can learn from the Korbanot.
Thank you.